Welcome back to the Mind and Money podcast. I'm Val, a financial planner.
And I'm Sherry, a financial coach. And today we are excited to have a guest with us. And the guest is an ADHD coach, and we would love to introduce you to Erica. We're going to talk a little bit about some tips for managing ADHD and some different ways that Erica helps her clients look at it, and just some tips overall to help better manage things and just think about it in a little bit different way. So Erica, I will throw it over to you to give yourself a little introduction.
Hi, thanks, Sherry. Thank you, Val. Thanks for having me. So I am an ADHD coach. I created my practice because I saw a gap or maybe something missing within the ADHD support world. I find that, a lot of ADHD support is a lot of just symptom management, focusing on the things that you're not doing well or as people label as weaknesses, but there's not a lot of emphasis on strengths and what having an ADHD brain can really bring to someone's life and also society as a whole. I work with mainly people who are kind of newly discovered that they have ADHD maybe within the last 3 years, and the hyperactivity or the H in the ADHD is, my approach is best for the people where the hyperactivity is kind of inside their heads, swirling of thoughts, often leading to a paralysis feeling of wanting to take action, but not sure where to start. But my approach is highly, highly positive. It's a lot of validating people's struggles and then highlighting people's strengths, which I think is a strategic approach in and of itself. It's based on my own experience as having ADHD, and it's based on my own research. And also every client teaches me something new about and I reintegrate that back into my work. So thank you.
There's so many things out there, especially on within the media, about how ADHD has its kind of downsides or not positive. So to take it and use it, focus on the strengths is freaking awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's such a unique approach, and I love that focus for you. So if you were to list some of the top positive things that ADHD can bring to someone's life, what are the things that pop into your head first?
Yeah, so I'm always discovering more. I am blown away always by the brilliance of my clients. But I would say the biggest thing that I see is people with the ADHD brain takes in so much information, more information than maybe than a neurotypical brain. And so that can bring a lot of, you could look at it and say that brings a lot of overwhelm, a lot of overstimulation, but it also brings, if you allow your brain to take in all that information and do its thing, you can see connections and through lines that other people can't see. It creates a lot of innovation, a lot of creativity, and sometimes you just need a little bit of extra time to bring it all together. I see a lot of people, I find it myself, the creative process is not non-linear. People with ADHD, their ability to see connections, to see big picture stuff, and then find the little nugget of wisdom that's in there, it's kind of, if you don't have an ADHD brain, that kind of outside of the box thinking, that kind of connection seeing is just not really accessible to you at the same level. And so that's why I think we see a lot of people with ADHD within the entrepreneurial space, within the business innovation space, because they explore many realms and then they can connect them and find the opening or the creativity or the kind of innovative pushing the whatever it is in the right direction.
Do you find that most of your clients are entrepreneurs?
A good chunk of them are, yeah.
I love that. And I feel that in my business as well. And I always kind of leaned into, I need to be an entrepreneur because I can't handle having somebody tell me what to do. But leaning into I excel at being an entrepreneur because I can pick those nuggets out with my clients who are also predominantly entrepreneurs and just think about, have you ever thought about this in your business or this new strategy to manage your money? And based on what you've said, I think this would work really well. And it's just you see those light bulbs come on with them, and having that step back to be able to not be emotionally attached to the events that are in our clients' lives and businesses gives us that extra ability to see and pick up those points too. Because when you're in it, it's really hard to have that kind of unbiased opinion because it's your life. So being able to work with a coach to help bring those things in is really huge for ADHD individuals, especially entrepreneurs?
I also think that what makes some people great coaches, probably like yourself, Sherry, is that they have ADHD and they can listen and hear from kind of like a removed place, but and take in everything that the person is saying and kind of bring it together in like a point that just, I don't know if either of you have had this experience where there's stuff happening, people are speaking, there's something happening, people are trying to figure it out, and then you are just like, oh, why don't you just do this? And everyone looks at you like, how did you do that? How did you even think of that? You're like, well, I can't really explain it, but my brain kind of spit out thought from a perspective that no one else in that room could see. Yeah, I've had a few of those.
See ADHD as a strength. What are some of the biggest areas of growth that you see? Like, I would imagine confidence and self-worth, self-esteem. What else do you see?
Yeah. So I get them to highlight their strengths, and I get them to see their brain just as different, a different way of being. And I think that can help with self-esteem because, first of all, a lot of people with ADHD, their life history, even if they were diagnosed as a kid or as an adult, is a lot of negative messaging from an early age, and also a lifetime of trying to fit themselves into a neurotypical standard measure of success and expectation. And their brain, it just has a different way of being. So that can bring a lot of low self-esteem, a lot of shame. It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, but maybe they instead just needed a different shape or a different box. So just in giving people that kind of perspective, it really changes how people view themselves, and also they can take that and apply it. If you give a person with ADHD a metaphor, they take that and can apply it to any part of their life, so even just giving someone that perspective to take and use kind of in their own autonomous way can be really helpful. Yeah, so I just in holding space for someone with that perspective that I bring, and allowing them to bring their full self and know that they're not going to be, pathologized or talked down to, but more of like I see you. Just giving them that space, I think, is huge off the hop, and having that perspective and giving them that perspective and letting them go and apply it to their own lives. And then sometimes now I have clients coming back and they would come in at the beginning and tell me all of the things that they weren't doing, and now they come in and they want to tell me everything that they're doing well. It's just a switch in the way that they're seeing themselves. So it's really awesome.
Love that. And having that avenue for somebody with ADHD, especially who's newly diagnosed or newly discovered they have ADHD, to share their successes with somebody who also has ADHD, who gets it, versus maybe trying to talk to a friend or a family member or a partner who doesn't have ADHD. They're like, oh, wow, you remembered to put dinner away last night. Congratulations. Like, that's just basic life. And you're like, no, but do you know how many times I haven't and it's gone bad? And I'm sharing that example because it's a job that my husband, bless his heart, has taken on. But last night I had to go into the kitchen for something and I realized he hadn't. I'm like, win, this food is not going to go in the garbage tomorrow morning. So it's just like those little wins. Yeah. Finding ways to celebrate them and having a path to share them with somebody who gets it, I think, is really key. When you meet with somebody who's newly diagnosed or newly discovered that they have ADHD, what are those first conversations? Like, what are your recommendations that somebody takes when they're just really new? And having an ADHD brain can mean that when you discover that you're different, there's so many emotions. So what are some of the things you recommend somebody in that position does to move forward?
Yeah, totally. So I find, and this is just based on my own kind of experience and working with clients and all that, but I do find that there's, especially people who are assigned female at birth, there's a lot of there's a lot of later in life diagnosis. And so there's usually a feeling of like, wish I had known this sooner. Like there's a lot of looking back on your life and just having like aha moments of that was what was going on. And then there's a lot of peace that comes with finally having a container to kind of hold your life experience in and understanding. And then there's also like a sense of overwhelm from all of the new information. And there's a lot, if you look on social media, there's so many people now talking about ADHD, and a lot of them are conflicting. And it can be overwhelming. It's like, where do I even start? What do I do? Now do I have this knowledge and awareness about my brain and myself? And I think that just first off the start, I just, starting and just acknowledging that experience. And I usually try and give a little bit of structure around what I think, and education around what I think is helpful, to know, like, what motivates someone with ADHD. It's different than someone with a neurotypical brain. What are the basics to know about how the ADHD brain processes information? Just super basic stuff like that, that's tangible. But then most of the time, I just listen. Like, I think that that's more important than anything. Like, listening, verbal processing is often so important for people with ADHD. You just need to get it out of your head and have someone listen and hold that space. First and foremost, I just listen and I hold space from a place of empathy and also mutual understanding. Because I have ADHD, I can connect with them. So I think acknowledging the journey, I get them to tell me about their journey, just acknowledging that, giving them basic tools, like, what are the 5 things that motivate the ADHD brain? So they're urgency, novelty, creativity, challenge, and interest, which is just starting there, is so important, because most of the time we've just been trying to motivate ourselves using what's important, what we think is important, what we've been told we should be doing, instead of what are the ways that our brain wants to be doing things or is motivated. So start them there, and then I just listen from a place of empathy and understanding, give them the space to speak.
Do you find most of your clients are medicated or unmedicated?
It's a mix. Yeah, it's a mix. Mm-hmm.
Do you find you have to have different approaches to either one? Not have to, but do you find that there's a big difference?
I haven't fully noticed a difference between who are medicated versus not medicated in the sessions themselves.
Right.
And I don't ask people to share that information unless they want to share. They just share it with me.
For sure. Yeah.
But I don't really notice. I haven't fully maybe paid attention to that, how people are showing up based on whether they're medicated or not.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of created the sessions around the ADHD brain and how it functions regardless of whether they're on medication or not. So it's kind of like, I would describe it to people as like, medication is a tool. ADHD coaching sessions are a tool. You can use them together. You can use them separately. But I haven't noticed a huge difference with how people are showing up in the sessions. I have clients that are on medication, clients that are not. They sometimes tell me some differences that they're experiencing, but I haven't noticed. My brain hasn't pattern recognized anything yet.
Cool. And can we just go back to the things that motivate the ADHD brain and just dive into that a little bit more? With each thing, like, what are some techniques that somebody with ADHD can use to help them get things done? Because that's a big challenge, especially for entrepreneurs who, blessing and a curse that we are our own boss, that sometimes we just don't have the quote unquote motivation. And the shoulds are a big one. And we just coming out this week actually as a podcast around like some tips that we have around trying to ignore those shoulds and figure out what works best for you. But if we look at each individual motivator, I think we can kind of break that down a little bit too.
Sure. Yeah. So this was something that I discovered a few years ago, that I thought was mind-blowing. And also, why didn't anyone tell me this earlier? The ADHD brain is motivated in a different way and by different things than a neurotypical brain. And just, that's life-changing. The neurotypical brain motivated by what is deemed important over what is deemed interesting or anything else. And all of us ADHDers have been out here trying to motivate ourselves to do the quote unquote important thing. And it's been like pushing our boulder up a hill. Like, it's so hard. And why is that? Because our brain doesn't work that way. And so the 5, and this may grow, but the 5 motivating factors. And I will say I got this from Dr. Ned Hallowell and a few other sources in his book, ADHD 2.0, I believe that's where it's from. So urgency, novelty, creativity, challenge, and interest. Urgency, I find, is the most used motivating factor.
Like that fire comes up and you've known it was smoldering and you're like, shit, I've got to get to that.
But also, one of the reasons why coaching is really effective, because when I look at my clients, we usually share files online, like through Google, and I look and I'll see like, oh, they haven't been in there since we met last. And then I'll hop on that file. I'm like, oh, they've been in there for 20 minutes. They're doing the things and updating all of the stuff because they know, shit, I'm meeting with Sherry at this time and I committed to do these things. So I better go in and do it before.
Accountability piece creates that urgency.
Really.
And helping, one of the things, I had a client who, in her business, she had to meet with a client at the scheduled time, but she had a task that she had to do before that. And she would always lean into the meeting with them on Thursday, and I should do it at least a couple days beforehand. It's like, why? How long does it take you to do that task? And if you're meeting with them on Thursday morning, why don't you do it on Wednesday? And then you don't have to beat yourself up for not doing it on Monday and not doing it on Tuesday and not doing it on Wednesday morning, when you can give yourself some grace and lean into that urgency by scheduling it Wednesday afternoon. And then you have to do it because you're meeting with that client on Thursday morning. So I think that's one way that's really helped me as well, because we record podcasts. We record 3, 4, 5 episodes once a month. And I thought, I'm going to go in and I'm going to edit them all. And I'm going to schedule them all. And that doesn't work for me. I schedule one a week. I edit one a week. And that works for me. Because I know it's like, it creates that urgency. It's like, oh, this episode has to go out this week, so I better do it.
Interesting that like importance for that neurotypical brain. It's not even on the list of 5 there. So we talked about urgency, and the next one was novelty.
Novelty, yeah.
Okay.
Is the most fun one besides creativity. Novelty is one of the more fun ones, Novelty, things get boring, our brains seek stimulation and dopamine more than our neurotypical counterparts. And, so examples of this, like you find a place, say your office, you love your office, you want to work in your office, the flow is happening. 2 weeks go by, nothing is happening in the office anymore. You pick your stuff up, you go to a coffee shop. Wow, the coffee shop. This is my new place. This is where the productivity is flowing. The focus is here. I can't wait to get myself to the coffee shop every day. 2 weeks go by. Maybe one week goes by. Okay, so I'm in the coffee shop and I've been more focused on the conversation over there and what I came here to do. Okay, now I'm gonna go to the library. Oh, the library, it's so quiet. It's great. I can hear myself. I think I can get all my stuff done. Okay, some time goes by. You've been coming to the library. Wow, it's so quiet in here. I can't. I need more. I need something else. So change of location and novelty. I would tell a lot of my clients, like, things are gonna work for you. Do what works and do it until it doesn't work anymore, and then do something else. And this thing, that the tool that you've created, it might start working again in maybe a month's time, but the novelty needs to come back on this tool. That's just one example of how there's many ways to use novelty. Get a new notebook. Why not? Get a new pen. Yeah, grab one out of the 10. The novelties probably come back. Do what works. Don't shame yourself for wanting something a little bit new and shiny. If it works, if it gets you doing the things that you want to be doing. So novelty is one of my faves. Creativity is the most fun. Creativity, anything. I like to say, this is just my opinion, that creativity for the ADHD brain is like the most effective form of rest and recovery. Because if you're creating something, so say you're like, I'm gonna paint, I'm gonna write, I'm gonna whatever it is that you like to, I'm gonna use my Cricut. The dopamine that you get from that, it's like a positive feedback loop. You're doing something that you love to do for no purpose other than just making something for fun. And that can spill out afterwards into doing things for your business or your work, whatever. But it's just like you're doing something that you love to do. You're creating something that didn't exist before, and it's just restoring and stimulating your brain. And the more you do it, the more you want to do it again. It also, the constraints of everyday life are not on it, because you're creating something. So yeah, go ahead.
Do you see a lot of ADHD entrepreneurs take their passion, try to monetize it, then become stressed because their creativity is now has urgency attached to it?
I want to throw my Cricut out the window.
Do you see that?
Yeah. I mean, yes. And usually one of the tools that we come up with together is like, just stop creating stuff for your business for a second and just make something for fun, and just create something for you. Get back in touch with why you loved it in the first place. And that usually reinvigorates people to start creating for their business if they want to, or maybe they're like, you know what, maybe this should just be for me. Like, having stuff just for you that's not monetized, that is fun for you, that brings you joy outside of work, is so play, art is so important for people with ADHD's happiness and life satisfaction.
Yep. I love that. And I think I lean into this a lot in my business, and I love exploring new options as far as like social media content. And I legit am sitting making a video in CapCut or in Canva or whatever, and like giggling to myself because like, this is hilarious. And I get so much joy out of that. And I know creating content for social media can feel heavy for a lot of people. But I think if that's how you're feeling and you're an entrepreneur and that is a path to you generating income, think about ways you can make it fun, put less pressure on it. And I also lean into the urgency, because I have social media apps on my phone that control how long I'm on social media, and they kick me out. And one of the things I've been doing recently is it lets me on for a little 10-minute spurts. So I'm like, I'm going to go on to TikTok. I am going to create, edit, and post a video in 10 minutes. And that time pressure, it also helps me let go of some of that perfectionism, because it's like, I'm just going to do one video, and it's, this sounds horrible, but like, it's TikTok. So it's basically like a free for all over there. And then if those videos hit well and they feel like they're good for other social media platforms, then I'll share them there. So I'm like, oh, this one has a good impact. It has a good message. I'm going to share it over on Instagram as well. Cause it helps me keep things fun, and also that creativity and urgency. Like, there's a lot of factors that play into that strategy.
I like to think of the 5 motivating factors as like a painter's palette,
Ooh.
what you just experiment and try out, and just whatever, a little bit of urgency, a little bit of novelty, I'm going to bring in some of my interests, just and play, of like trial and error and play and creativity within your ADHD, and just like seeing what works this week, seeing what works today. Yeah. That's another metaphor for people to use.
I think that's key, is figuring out like what works for now, and being okay with it's for now, and tomorrow or next week or next month, I'm probably going to have to develop completely new strategies to get the things I need to get done.
Yeah. Or bring in, the strategies that I like to think of ADHD as like cyclical. And so the strategies that you're creating are going to work for now, and they're not just going to go to waste. They will be tools and things that you remember and bring back in, that are like tried and true, trusted ways that work. And they may drop off for a little bit, but the more ways that you create different tools, they'll cycle through. And you'll have more, the more you do that, the more tools you'll have that actually work for your brain, and that you can pull from, depending on, let them, it's not working right now, bring in a different one, try something else out. And the more you do that, the more you get to know yourself. I mean, at the end of the day, just more and more self-awareness with people with ADHD, beautifully self-aware, like most of the time, like you ask someone with ADHD, like kind of what their experience is, they got a lot to say, like you are in there with all of your wonderful, frustrating swirlingness, and it's bringing yourself that beautiful self-awareness and just like applying it to things that actually work for you.
Yep. I love that. And what else did we have on that list?
So there's challenge. So we have urgency, novelty, creativity, and then challenge. Dr. Ned Hallowell, in his book ADHD 2.0, talks about finding the right kind of hard, finding the right kind of challenge that both you are interested in, that you like, that brings you that sense of stimulation to your brain, but is also like challenging and that you can like work at it and improve on over time. I think that that's key. Finding your thing, like finding things that you are kind of naturally good at, but then there's room to learn and grow, like taking courses, learning new skills, finding things that challenge you, because things that are easy are just not fun. Like they're fun, but they're not going to get you like, oh my gosh, I found this new thing that I think is super awesome and kind of a bit challenging, but like I'm all in on this, you know? So there's challenge, and then there's connected to that, there's interest. And so I think there's a lot of talk about having an interest-based nervous system, which is true. We are motivated by what we find interesting. And that might change depending on the day, depending on the week, depending on the year. But in terms of using that to motivate yourself, I think that it's like that palette, you know? Where can you paint your interest into your day-to-day life? Like, if you want to walk more, okay, walking is boring, but you found a podcast that you find really interesting, you know, can you put that in? Instead of, I have to go for a walk because it's quote unquote good for my health. Like I should be going for a walk. I found this podcast that I really like, and I get to listen to my podcast. Okay, I'm going to go for a walk so I can listen to this podcast. I think that that's why a lot of people with ADHD also become entrepreneurs, because they want their work to be something that they care about and they find interesting and that motivates them. And, you know, interests wax and wane and there's peaks and valleys, but I think that that's why I think entrepreneurship is so great for people with ADHD, because you get to choose what you focus on and what's important to you. So there's just some examples.
Okay, you said interest-based nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
Interest-based, yeah? Is that what you said?
Yes. Yeah.
Explain a little bit more.
So it's like the comparison of the importance-based kind of motivation in the neurotypical people and people with neurodivergent people with ADHD in particular, highly motivated by what they find interesting. If you find something that you find interesting, that you enjoy, it's gonna release that dopamine and you want to keep doing it. You know, it's just kind of like in creativity, interest and creativity, I think really go hand in hand. So it's like a positive feedback loop. The more you do it, the more you want to do it, the more you're interested in something, it sparks your attention. You're like, okay, I'm drawn to this. It's where that, you know, people talk about the hyper focus comes in. You're locked in on something and you can do it for a very extended period of time versus something that you don't find interesting, like dishes or laundry or taxes. I'm not sure. It depends on the person. I know you guys make taxes.
I enjoy taxes. Let me do your taxes. I can help.
Your interest is taxes. There you go.
All things personal finance.
Yeah, exactly. But you're drawn to it and you're interested in it, and so and then your whole nervous system kind of orients itself around it. It increases motivation in that way. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%. Thank you for going deeper on that.
Okay, here's a challenge that I suspect many ADHDers come across. You have a task that you need to do,
Mm-hmm.
but there's no immediate consequence if you don't do it. Example, asking for a friend. You need to call the doctor to book an appointment to get your medication refilled, but you've still got a couple weeks, so you're good, but you know you can't get into the doctor right away, so maybe you're not that good, but it's actually more urgent than my brain thinks it is. Any recommendations for leaning into, like, how can a task like that doesn't have any immediate consequences, how can we motivate ourselves to get something like that done?
Yeah. So my inner coach would then ask, turn it back on you, because actually you are the most effective and knowledgeable resource that we have about you and your brain and your experiences with ADHD. And so I wonder if we can look at, if I ask you what has worked for you in the past, like you've been living your life going to the doctor, what has worked for you in the past to get that appointment scheduled is there anything that we can kind of mine your past experience to? And you don't have to answer if you don't want,
Yeah.
but
No, I'm here for it. Yeah. But previously, my old doctor, the pharmacy could just call and ask them and they would send in a prescription. But my new doctor doesn't do that. You actually have to go in to see them and have an appointment. So that, I think that's something that's challenging for me, is that that's a big shift. Before, the pharmacy would just call me up and be like, do you want me to do this? I'd be, sure, thanks. You're taking the lead. You're doing it for me. And now I've got to take the lead. So it's that shift that I think is like, why, for me, my brain is just going to like, why is this so hard? Why are there these barriers to getting this prescription renewed when before it was so easy? And now I've got more hoops to jump through, and one of them is the phone call, which I hate. I hate making phone calls. And also the fear, whether it's real or not, of the receptionist like hates me. This is going to be difficult.
I think everyone about their doctor's receptions.
They're like these big old like gatekeepers, and like I know they're just people.
Totally. I
mean, you should have called earlier, right?
The worst. And totally, I get it. And I think just acknowledging that as your experience, like, okay, before there was a system that worked for you, right? The pharmacy would call the doctor, so you didn't have to. And now that's not accessible to you anymore. So now you have to create a new way of doing that for yourself. And then just acknowledging the places that feel like resistance, that feel like blocks, like that you're going to get stuck, right? Talking on the phone. I don't like talking on the phone either. I get it. And then once you get yourself to call, the receptionist is not nice. Like people, I'm a sensitive person. People with ADHD are often quite sensitive. So talking to people that are unpleasant and are maybe going to shame you, just so demotivating. So I think just first recognizing and validating where you're going to get stuck is actually a new task and skill that was not there before. And so one, you've got the new task that you've got to do, and then you've got a resistance on this side. And so this is going to be hard. Like, I think acknowledging that this is something that doesn't come easy to you, that's hard, is okay. Like I had a client last week where she was like, I should be able to do this. Like, it's easy. This is an easy task. I know it's easy. I'm like, well, it's not. This is what's hard for you. There are things that your brain can do that other people can't, there are things that come easy to you, like public speaking. She's brilliant. So there's a lot of things, but this is what's hard for you, and that's okay. And so I think just acknowledging that, and when you take all of the resistance and the new skill and the recognizing that this is going to be challenging, and then you can come at it from a place of like, okay, what do I need? How much energy do I need? What kind of place do I need to be in? And so from that place, I ask you again, what would be helpful for you in this, from that perspective?
Yeah, as you were talking through that, I think I need to put dangle a carrot in front of my face. So, like, you do this thing, you get this reward. And I don't know what that reward is yet, but I think putting something in place to motivate me that gives me something else, like do this hard thing, get this thing that you want. And then thinking about maybe journaling for a bit. What are the roadblocks? And then taking some time after I do the task to think, because it's not going to be that hard. It's probably going to take me 4 minutes or less.
Right. Why is it blocking you?
Yeah. Yeah. So thinking about the things that I've got resistance to. And then after the fact, like the receptionist probably is going to be lovely. Like, and this is funny because my husband just did this last week, like called the doctor, went to the doctor, got his prescription. I'm like, why? I wasn't joking when I said, can you make an appointment for me too? But he must have. But yeah, just figuring out what my blocks are. And then that reward is going to be maybe just a half a day to sit on my couch and drink my cozy coffee under a blanket and read my book.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also, we didn't talk about this, but the task initiation is more challenging for people with ADHD. And we often get stuck in the default mode of thinking and switch from default mode thinking to action and and activity and action it's easy for us to get stuck in the middle. It's hard to fully get to switch. And sometimes we focus on the task itself instead of focusing on the moment of initiation of the task. And so if you can make it easier for you to have a place to, maybe have a place to sit, to make the phone call, it's, you use your palette of motivation. Do you want to bring in urgency? Like, do you want to schedule it like in between certain things that you're
That's a
doing
good
in the
idea.
day? So you're not just sitting around like fretting, I have to do it now. Do you want to bring in like interest, reward for after, like you said? Do you you got to play around with it, focusing on it's hard to start. It's not always the task itself, because there's a lot often the experience of trying to get yourself to do something, and then you do it and you're like, this was so easy, why did I spend all of that energy? But the thing is, it's not the task that's hard, it's the initiation of the task.
And I say that a lot, and I put it in a social media post a lot too, is like, if you're feeling resistance to digging into understanding your money more, set a timer for 10 or 15 minutes and just commit that I'm going to do it for this small chunk of time. And then I often hear, yes, I set a timer for 10 minutes, but then I realized how much I had gotten through in 10 minutes and how it wasn't as challenging as I thought. So I just kept going. So I think that's I'm going to put it in my calendar. I'm going to look, and here's another thing, accountability to both of you. I'm going to do it this week. So I'll let you know when I do it. So I think that's great. Yeah. The task initiation is often a big challenge. So we could talk forever, but we also know the listeners' interests may not be forever. If somebody's looking to get some support, what is the best way that they can contact you and reach out?
So they can email me. I have a website, so it's Erica Lem lifecoaching.com. They can shoot me an email if they want to set up just like if they want to just connect. It's ericalem.coaching@gmail.com. I also have an Instagram. It's Erica Lem ADHD Coaching. Any of those would be great. Yeah.
Awesome.
I also have a newsletter. You can sign up for my newsletter. I send them this month. I'm writing a newsletter using my interest to motivate myself to write it. I'm using my love of Wicked and comparing it to the ADHD experience. So if you want to sign up for my newsletter, I send out one once a month as well.
I love that. And we'll put all that information in the show notes as well, so people can connect with you. And we just want to say a big thank you again for being our guest. And thank you to our listeners for being here. And we can't wait to see you next time on the Mind and Money podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Erica.